Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Stephen, and if there's one thing I've learned after 19 years of marriage, it's that not everything is as it seems. People admire marriages from the outside. They see the family pictures, the anniversary posts, the smiles at dinner parties, and they assume it's all built on love and trust. But what they don't realize is that some marriages, too many in fact, are built on secrets and lies. And the worst part? You don't even see it coming until it's too late. I never questioned my marriage, never doubted my wife, Betty, not even once. I worked hard, provided for my family, and believed in the vows we made to each other. But I was blind. If you're not careful, you might end up in a relationship just like mine. And I pray that when you finally uncover the truth, it doesn't break you the way it broke me. I married my wife, Betty, when I was 25, and she was 22. We were young, excited, and ready to start our life together. From the very beginning, we both agreed that we wanted kids early, and within the first 2 years of our marriage, we had 2 boys. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to provide for my family. I worked long hours, sometimes pulling double shifts, just to make sure they had everything they needed. In my mind, we were a team. She handled things at home, while I worked hard to build a good life for us. People admired our family. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers. I believed them. I had no reason not to. Looking back now, I see how blind I was. As the years went by, our boys grew up and went off to college. They hardly came home, even during the holidays. It was just me and Betty now. I didn't mind. This was our time to finally relax and enjoy each other's company. I had also made a big career shift. Instead of constantly working overtime or doing physically demanding jobs, I had transitioned into running my own business. I still worked hard, but I had people handling the day-to-day operations, which meant I was home a lot more than before. One Thursday morning, I woke up with a pounding headache. I was supposed to meet with some distributors that day, an important deal I had been working on for weeks, but the second I tried to sit up, my head felt like it was splitting open. There was no way I could get through a long meeting like this. I picked up my phone, sent a quick message to reschedule, and lay back down, pressing my palms against my temples. Betty, my wife, took one look at me and asked what was wrong. I told her about the headache, and without hesitation, she walked over to our medicine cabinet, grabbed a small bottle, and poured me a dose. "Here, take this," she said, handing me a glass of water. "You probably just need some rest." I swallowed the medication and sighed. Maybe she was right. I had been overworking myself lately, barely giving my body the rest it needed. As I sat up, Betty started gathering her things. "I'm heading out for my spa day with the girls," she said. "You sure you'll be okay?" I gave her a tired smile. "Yeah, I'll be fine. Go enjoy yourself." She leaned down, kissed my forehead, and walked toward the door. I watched as she grabbed her purse, adjusted her hair in the hallway mirror, and then disappeared out the front door. A few moments later, I heard the car engine start, and then she was gone. I sat there for a while, waiting for the medicine to kick in. After about 20 minutes, the pain dulled to a manageable throb, and I figured I might as well use this unexpected free time for something productive. There was one thing I had been avoiding for months: the garage. It had become a dumping ground for anything and everything we didn't have space for inside the house. Old furniture, boxes we never unpacked when we moved in, random junk that I kept telling myself I'd sort through one day. Well, today was that day. I grabbed a bottle of water, slipped on an old t-shirt, and made my way downstairs. The moment I opened the garage door, I was hit with the musty smell of dust and aged cardboard. This was going to be a long task, but at least it would keep me busy. Little did I know that within the next few hours, my entire world was about to come crashing down. I started with the bigger boxes first. Most of them were filled with things we had no use for anymore. One box was packed with old toys my boys used to play with when they were little. I set the box aside. Maybe I'd donate the toys to charity. Some kid out there could still find joy in them. Next, I pulled out a worn-out bag filled with books. There were all kinds: fairy tale collections, textbooks, novels Betty and I had probably bought years ago and forgotten about. I flipped through a few of them, reminiscing about when we used to read to the boys before bed. But then, at the bottom of the bag, something else caught my eye, a small leather-bound journal. It was old, the edges of the pages slightly yellowed, the cover worn down like it had been handled many times over the years. I knew right away it belonged to Betty. There was something familiar about it, even though I had never seen it before. My first thought was that it had to be from the early years of our marriage. I turned it over in my hands, running my fingers over the creases on the cover. A part of me hesitated. This was personal. A journal is where someone writes their deepest thoughts, their secrets, their emotions. But another part of me, stronger, more curious, wanted to know. What had Betty been thinking back then? What kind of things had she written about? After all, we had been married for 19 years. What harm could there be in looking? So I opened it. And with that simple action, my world would start to crack open. The early pages were innocent, simple reflections on our early days of marriage. Betty had written about our first home, our weekend outings, and the little things that made her happy. She described my long work hours and how she missed me when I was gone. It felt like a time capsule of our younger years, a reminder of when life was simpler. But then, as I turned another page, the tone changed. I saw an entry where she wrote about our first child. At first, it seemed like a normal entry. She described the moment she realized she was pregnant, how she woke up with nausea and couldn't keep food down. She said she was confused when she found out she was pregnant. Confused. That word didn't make sense to me at first. Why would she be confused? We had planned for kids. We had talked about it. Then, in the next line, she wrote that when she had her first morning sickness, she was already 3 weeks in. But we had only been together a week before that. I stopped breathing for a moment, my eyes locked on the words. She had encouraged me to go unprotected, acting as if we were just following our plan. But the truth was, she already knew. She knew the baby wasn't mine. As I turned the page, she had written more details that crushed my heart. She admitted that after realizing she was pregnant, she reached out to the real father. She told him her plan, to let me believe the baby was mine. And he agreed. He didn't fight it, didn't demand his rights as a father. He simply told her he wanted to be part of the child's life down the road. That was it. A deal made behind my back. A lifetime of deception, sealed before I even knew what was happening. I felt sick once again, recalling I've spent 19 years loving a son I thought was mine. 19 years of fatherhood built on a lie. My world spun as I struggled to breathe. I needed to know if this was a one-time thing. I flipped through the pages, searching for anything about our second child. And there it was. She had written about him too, but this time, her words were different. She admitted that he was mine. She had been careful this time. But that knowledge didn't comfort me. If anything, it made things worse. She had played God with my life, deciding what truths I was allowed to know. I couldn't take it anymore. The headache, which had started to fade earlier, came crashing back with full force. I couldn't focus. So, without another thought, I stumbled to the living room and dropped the journal onto the table. I sat down, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. My entire marriage had been built on a lie, and I had been too blind, too trusting, to ever see it. After a couple of hours of sitting in that living room, I heard the sound of Betty's car pulling into the driveway. I didn't know what I was feeling anymore, anger, confusion, betrayal, maybe all of them, mixed together. She came in, chatting about how the garage was a mess, how boxes were open all over the place. She didn't notice the journal at first, but the second her gaze landed on that book, I saw her face go pale. There was no denying it anymore. She knew. The secret was out. For a moment, it felt like everything in the room had paused. Just the two of us staring at each other in silence. I didn't know how to make sense of what I was feeling inside. But she fainted right there in front of me, dropping like a rag doll onto the floor. I jumped up and poured cold water on her face, desperate to bring her back to reality. She stirred after a few seconds, blinking and groaning as her eyes fluttered open. When she saw me, the first thing she did was start apologizing, repeating over and over how much she regretted it, how it was a mistake she wished she could take back. I didn't know what to say. She just kept going, explaining, trying to piece together her reasons for everything. She began confessing, saying the real father of our first child was her ex. She had been with him a month before we even got married. When she found out she was pregnant, she saw an opportunity to cover it all up. She thought if she pretended I was the father, nobody would find out, and her life would stay intact. She said she'd used my love and trust to hide what she had done. I couldn't believe it. This whole time, these whole 19 years, I had been raising a child that wasn't mine. And she had been so sure I'd never find out. She kept apologizing. I didn't know how to react to all of it. I just stared at her. I had trusted her for 19 years, and she had been lying to me all this time. The days after I found out the truth were some of the most silent and confusing days of my life. I found myself waking up, going through the motions, and doing everything I could to avoid facing the woman I had shared almost 2 decades with. I buried myself in work like never before. I started leaving the house earlier, coming home later, and filling my hours with anything that didn't involve talking to her or being in the same room. I didn't know what to say. And even if I did, I wasn't sure I wanted to say it to her. Meanwhile, Betty was trying hard to fix what she had broken. She became overly nice, overly helpful, like suddenly remembering how to be the perfect wife. After about a month of walking around the house like 2 strangers, I realized this couldn't go on. No matter how much I wished I could pretend none of this had happened, the trust we once had was gone. Once trust is gone, the marriage has no ground to stand on. I told her I wanted a divorce, that I couldn't keep pretending, that I deserved peace. But instead of accepting the truth, she flipped. Said she wouldn't walk away with nothing after giving me her best years. Claimed she had no money, no backup, and wanted a share of everything, my business, the house, the savings. She wanted to fight it out in court. That was the last straw for me. You lied to me for 19 years, let me raise another man's son, and now you want to take from me too? So, I hired a private investigator. I needed the full picture, something to protect myself in court. Within a few weeks, the investigator came back with proof that Betty had never really cut ties with the boy's real father. They had stayed in contact behind my back all these years. That was when I ordered DNA tests for both boys. The results confirmed everything. The first son wasn't mine. Only the second one was. We live in Florida, and I wasn't about to walk away from this without standing up for myself. With the PI's findings, the DNA results, and that journal she had written all those years ago, I took her to court for paternity fraud. And this time I won. The court granted me compensation, recognizing the deception and emotional damage I had endured. Betty? She walked away with almost nothing. She burned through what little settlement she had gotten from the divorce on legal fees, and still owed me part of the compensation the court ruled she had to pay. Now she's begging the court to give her more time to pay. All I ever did was love her, work hard for our family, and trust her. She took all of that for granted. You see, even after finding out he wasn't my biological child, I couldn't just switch off 19 years of love and memories. In every way that matters, I was his father. And to him, I was dad. Not a man who just happened to live in the same house, but someone he looked up to and trusted. So when he found out the truth about Betty's betrayal, it didn't just break me, it broke him too. He was devastated. Not because of the DNA test, but because his entire foundation of family was shaken. He couldn't understand how his own mother could lie to him for so long. And it wasn't just the lie itself, it was how deep and deliberate it was. She knew and made that choice. My younger son, the one I found out was biologically mine, kept his distance from her as well. In the end, Betty lost everything. No husband, no money, because whatever she fought to gain in court went straight to legal fees and debts. And worse, she gets no respect from her children. She thought she could lie and still keep her family, but the truth has a way of burning everything down when it's buried for too long. You know, I've had a lot of time to think about everything that happened. Betty begged when she realized I had found her journal. She cried like a child and painted herself as a confused young woman who didn't know what she was doing back then. I had every intention of ending things quietly. I didn't want to drag her through the mud. I didn't want the neighbors, or even our boys, to see her differently. I just wanted out with as little damage as possible. After all, we had almost 2 decades together. Even if it was all a lie, it still counted for something in my heart. But then, she flipped. The moment she realized that I was serious about leaving, her desperation turned into something else. Selfishness. Greed. She stopped apologizing and started demanding. Suddenly, she wanted more than half of everything. She refused to settle out of court. She acted like she was the one being wronged. That part hurt more than I can explain. She wasn't sorry. She was only sorry she got caught. She gambled everything, thinking she could squeeze more out of me. But that greed cost her everything. She lost the marriage, lost her respect, and lost the boys. She was drowning in legal debt and having to pay me compensation for all those years of deception. All of this could have ended quietly, with a bit of dignity left. But she chose the road of selfishness. And that road left her with nothing. Now I want to share things I've learned from this whole experience. Things I wish someone had told me when I was 25. First, be careful whom you marry. It sounds simple, but it's not. Don't marry based on charm or how happy they make you feel when things are good. Pay attention to their values. Watch how they handle truth, responsibility, and pressure. Because if they fail in those areas, one day, you'll be the one paying for it. Second, lies can live long, but the truth eventually catches up. For 19 years, I lived a lie. But the truth came out in a journal from a box in the garage. Truth always finds its way. So if you're hiding something, don't fool yourself. It will come to light. And if you sense something is off in your relationship, don't ignore your instincts forever. Third, love does not erase betrayal. I loved Betty. I gave her everything. My trust, my loyalty, my youth. But when I read that journal, all that love couldn't erase the betrayal. Love is powerful, yes, but it doesn't fix wounds that come from deception. Don't let love blind you to the pain that you have every right to walk away from. Lastly, forgiveness does not mean staying. A lot of people mix those two up. I forgave Betty, not for her sake, but for mine. I didn't want to carry that bitterness in my chest. But that didn't mean I had to stay with her. Sometimes, walking away is the real healing. Staying might only reopen the wound every single day. So that's my story, my reality. I hope you never go through what I did, but if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember what I said. Be careful, be honest, and above all, value your peace more than your pride. Now, what would you have done if you were in my situation? Seriously, I want to know. Would you have stayed and tried to fix it? Or walked away like I did? I want to thank you for sticking with me through this story. I felt someone out there needed to hear it. If you've gone through something like this, or you're just trying to be careful in your own relationship, maybe this helped you somehow. Maybe it gave you a warning, or maybe it made you feel less alone. If this story hit home, please go ahead and like this video. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. You never know who's dealing with something similar behind closed doors. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.